I used to believe nightmares ended when you opened your eyes. But sometimes, the true horror begins the moment you wake up. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Don't miss the rest of this story, because the ending will shock you in ways you won't expect. The first time I experienced sleep paralysis, I thought I was dying. I had just finished a long shift at work and crashed into bed, completely exhausted. It was around 2 a.m. The house silent, the kind of silence where even the air feels heavy. I fell asleep almost instantly, but when I woke up a few hours later, something was horribly wrong. I opened my eyes and realized I couldn't move. Not even a finger. My body felt like it was cemented to the mattress. I tried to lift my arm, to turn my head, but I was locked in place, trapped inside my own body. Panic set in immediately. My breathing grew shallow, and the room seemed colder than it had been before I fell asleep. At first, I told myself it was just a dream, that I wasn't really awake, but the details around me were too clear. I could see the faint glow of the streetlight bleeding through the blinds, the shadow of my desk chair in the corner, the small crack in my ceiling I'd noticed 100 times before. It was real. I was awake. I just couldn't move. And then I heard it, a faint creak at the far side of my room, like someone stepping on the old wooden floorboards. My eyes darted toward the sound, but nothing was there. My heart hammered in my chest, so loud I was sure whatever was in my room could hear it. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My mouth wouldn't open. That's when I saw it. At first, it was just a darker patch of shadow in the corner, but as my eyes adjusted, the shape began to form. It was too tall for a person its head, almost brushing the ceiling. Its body was impossibly thin, as though it had been stretched. And yet, it moved, slowly, deliberately, as if it had been waiting for me to notice it. I wanted to close my eyes, but I couldn't. I wanted to look away, but I was forced to stare as the thing began to edge closer. The sound of the floor creaking grew louder with each step it took, the weight of its presence filling the room until it felt hard to breathe. When it reached the foot of my bed, it stopped. The shape loomed there, motionless. I could see nothing but the black void where its face should have been. For a moment, I thought maybe it would leave, but then the mattress shifted, sinking slightly, as though something had placed its hands there. It was climbing onto the bed. I felt the pressure near my feet first, then slowly rising up toward my legs. My chest tightened, every nerve screaming in terror as I realized it was crawling on top of me. The air grew colder with each passing second, until it felt like ice in my lungs. I wanted to fight, to thrash, to kick it away, but I couldn't even twitch. When it reached my chest, the weight pressed down so hard I thought my ribs would crack. The shadow leaned close, until its faceless head hovered just inches above mine. I couldn't see eyes, but I could feel it staring at me, piercing straight through me with something worse than sight. Then, a sound low, guttural, like a growl or a whisper in a language I couldn't understand. The noise vibrated in my skull, and for a moment I thought I would lose my mind entirely. Tears slipped from my eyes, the only movement my body was capable of. I don't know how long I lay there pinned beneath it. Time seemed to stretch forever, but then, just as suddenly as it began, it ended. The weight vanished. The shape dissolved back into the shadows of the room, and with a sudden gasp, I bolted upright, my body finally breaking free. I sat there, drenched in sweat, my chest aching as if something really had been crushed. The room was empty, silent again. But the fear didn't leave. Even though I was awake, even though I could move again, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still there, watching me from the dark. That was the first time, and as horrifying as it was only the beginning. Because sleep paralysis has a way of coming back, and each time it does, it's worse than before. I thought the first episode was a one-time nightmare, but a few weeks later, it happened again this time. Even worse. It started on a night I was staying at a friend's apartment. I'd always been a light sleeper, sensitive to every sound. But that night, exhaustion from work made me fall asleep almost instantly. Or so I thought. Around 3 a.m., I awoke with a heavy pressure on my chest. My eyes shot open, but once again, I couldn't move. My body was paralyzed, stuck between sleep and waking, and the familiar wave of panic hit me instantly. My surroundings were different this time. The dim glow of the street lamp outside the window, the faint hum of the refrigerator, but the sensation was the same. I was trapped. Then I heard it. Soft at first, barely audible over my racing heartbeater. Scratching, like fingernails across the wooden floor. The sound came from the corner of the room, where my friend's old bookshelf leaned against the wall. I tried to call out, to shout for help, but no sound emerged. My lips wouldn't move, my arms and legs. Nothing. And then, I saw it. Unlike the shadowy figure from before, this one seemed almost human at first glance, crouched behind the bookshelf. But the way it moved was wrong, to jerky, to deliberate, like a marionette, being pulled by invisible strings. Its head twisted unnaturally, every movement sharp and inhuman. I could barely comprehend what I was seeing, but I knew it was looking at me. It began to crawl forward. Its hands slid across the floor, the nails scraping, leaving faint scratches in the wood. My body felt ice-cold, every nerve screaming as it approached. I wanted to pull the blankets over my head, to block out the sight, but I was frozen, unable to shield myself. By the time it reached the edge of the bed, I could see more details. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, veins visible beneath the surface. Its eyes, or what passed for eyes, were black holes, endless voids that seemed to suck in the light around them. And its mouth, if you could call it that, stretched impossibly wide, as though the skin had been ripped back. The figure climbed onto the bed. I could feel its cold presence pressing down on my chest again, heavier than before, like the weight of all the fear I had ever felt compressed into one being. The temperature in the room plummeted, my breath turning to visible mist even in the small warmth of the heater. Then it whispered. I couldn't understand the words. It wasn't a language I recognized, an eerie, garbled tone that vibrated in my skull. But the message was clear. It was claiming me, reminding me that I was powerless, that my body was not my own. I tried to fight it, tried to scream, tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. I felt its hands on my face, cold and fear pushing my eyelids open. And then, for the first time, I saw something beyond the figure. A glimpse of the apartment's ceiling, distorted, stretching impossibly as though the world itself was bending. Shadows twisted and danced, forming shapes that shouldn't exist. Faces, dozens of team floating in the darkness, all staring down at me, silent witnesses to my terror. Time became meaningless. Minutes or hours, I couldn't tell. The figure leaned close, its void-like eyes fixed on mine. And then, almost casually, it whispered one last thing, a single word: stay. The weight lifted instantly. The room snapped back to normal, and I collapsed to the side of the bed, gasping for air. My body finally obeyed me, trembling violently. My friend, awakened by my sudden movements, turned on the lights, but the room looked ordinary. Nothing was out of place, no scratches, no figure, no traces of the presence I had just experienced. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Even in daylight, the memory clung to me. I could feel its gaze lingering, even when I knew logically there was nothing there. And that's when I realized something chilling. It wasn't just a one-off hallucination. Sleep paralysis wasn't random. Something, or someone, used it to reach me, to trap me in that liminal space between waking and sleeping. Over the following weeks, I researched, desperate for answers. I read about hypnagogic hallucinations, about the science behind sleep paralysis, but nothing explained what I had felt. Nothing explained the figure climbing onto my bed, the whispered command, or the impossible shadows that bent reality itself. And then, it got worse. The episodes became more frequent, more intense. Each time I fell asleep, there was a lingering dread, a tightening in my chest, an anticipation that I was about to become the target again. Sometimes I would wake up screaming, sometimes paralyzed with my eyes wide open, always feeling that same unshakable weight pressing down on me. One night, it wasn't just a shadow, or a figure, or a distorted human form. It was something else, entirely. I don't even know how to describe it. Imagine a presence so oppressive, so utterly alien, that every instinct in your body screams to escape. But escape is impossible. It radiated malice, intelligence, and hunger all at once, and it was waiting for me. Always waiting, just beyond the edges of my vision until sleep claimed me again. By now, my life had changed. I avoided sleeping in unfamiliar places, avoided staying up too late, avoided even closing my eyes for too long. But no matter what I did, the episodes returned, and each time I could feel it learning more about me, understanding my fears, exploiting every weakness. I began to dread sleep itself. The very act of closing my eyes became a torment. Knowing that the paralysis would come, knowing that I would be trapped, helpless, and watched, I became exhausted, haunted, living in a constant fog of fear. This was the second time I realized the terrifying truth. Sleep paralysis, ISNT, just a phenomenon. It's a doorway to something beyond our understanding, something patient, intelligent, and malevolent. And the more it visits you, the more it knows you, the more it wants you. By the time the third episode occurred, I was terrified of falling asleep. But exhaustion doesn't care about fear. One night, after barely surviving a double shift, I collapsed into bed, praying for a deep, uninterrupted sleep. At first, nothing happened. My breathing was heavy, but steady. My eyes closed, and for a moment, I almost felt safe. And then, it began. I awoke with that familiar, suffocating weight pressing against me. My body was locked again, immovable. Panic surged through me, stronger than ever before. The room was pitch black, darker than any shadow I had seen, and the silence was deafening. And then the sound started. A low, wet rasping, like someone or something was dragging its claws across my bedroom floor. The noise came closer, circling, shifting, echoing off the walls in impossible ways. My heart pounded in my chest. My mind screamed to wake up fully, but my body refused to obey. Then I saw it. It didn't appear in the corner of the room this time. It was already there, hovering inches above me. Its fissure, which should have been a fissure, a black void, stretching and twisting like melted wax. Its limbs were long and spindly, the fingers ending in sharp, unnaturally angled points. It stared down at me, and I felt every ounce of its attention focused on me, like an animal sizing up prey. The pressure on my chest increased. I could feel something cold and wet brushing against my skin, crawling over my torso and arms. I tried to scream, to thrash, to kick, but nothing happened. My body had betrayed me completely. And then, it spoke. Not a whisper this time, but a voice inside my head. Deep, guttural, and utterly alien, yet somehow intelligible. "You can't escape," it repeated the words. Ober and ober in rhythm with the beating of my heart. The weight grew heavier with each repetition, until it felt like my lungs might collapse. The air around me shimmered, the shadows bending and warping. Faces formed in the darkness, twisted and grotesque, staring at me silently, as if my fear was their sustenance. I felt hands, countless, invisible hands pressing down on me from every direction. My body was suffocating under their weight. Then, a cold sensation spread over my face, like icy water. I could feel its intent. It wanted me to acknowledge it, to surrender, and my mind teetered on the edge of losing control completely. I struggled to focus. My thoughts flickered back to everything I had read about sleep paralysis, about lucid dreaming, about grounding myself. Desperately, I tried to move my fingers. Slowly, inch by inch. One finger twitched, then another. I felt a glimmer of hope, but it wasn't over. The figure leaned even closer, its void-like eyes piercing me. And then, impossibly, it began to speak again, this time in my voice. Words I thought only I could utter. "Why do you fight me? The sound of my own voice, forced from my mind, paralyzed me with terror in a way I cannot describe. My body wanted to run, to flee, but my mind knew it was trapped. The figure's shadow stretched, growing taller and taller, until it seemed to swallow the ceiling, the walls, the very room itself. And then, just when I thought I would lose my mind entirely, something shifted. A faint light appeared, as if dawn had broken inside the room. The pressure lifted slightly. The voices, the hands, the shadows, they receded. I gasped, finally able to move my arms and legs. My body shook violently, but the figure was gone. I sat up, heart pounding, staring at the empty room. It was morning, pale sunlight streaming through the blinds, illuminating the ordinary bedroom. No scratches, no marks, nothing to indicate that the terror I had just experienced was real. But I knew it had been. I could still feel its presence, lingering in the air, watching. After that night, I could no longer sleep alone. Every time I closed my eyes, even for a second, the dread would return. Each episode was different, but the fear was the same, inescapable, ever present. It wasn't just a nightmare. It was a warning, a reminder that sleep is fragile, that our minds are vulnerable, and that some things wait patiently for you while you are defenseless. I learned to cope, barely. I slept with the lights on, kept a fan running to create white noise, and avoided naps. But no method was perfect. Every now and then, when I'm utterly exhausted, I feel it again. The weight, the cold, the presence. Watching, waiting. Reminding me that the boundary between waking and sleeping is thin, and sometimes it's better not to cross it all. I've shared this story not to frighten you for no reason, but to warn you. Sleep paralysis can feel like more than science, more than hallucination. Sometimes it is a doorway to something you can't explain, something that lingers just beyond the edges of our perception. And if you've ever experienced it, you know exactly the terror I'm describing. So, next time you feel that pressure on your chest, that freezing paralysis, remember, fight if you can, scream if you must, and never, ever ignore the shadows. Because sometimes, the things that visit in the dark don't just disappear. They wait, and they remember. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more terrifying true horror experiences, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a like and comment below. Your support helps us bring more spine-chilling stories directly to you. Remember, you've only just scratched the surface of the horrors that lurk in the shadows, and the next story might be even closer than you think.